بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters,
Salam.
today we are going to discuss about Al-Hijrah of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, a journey of those two whose third was Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, a journey from Makkan Jahiliyyah to the light of Madinah al-Munawwarah. Dear brothers and sisters, the Sira of Prophet ﷺ is being discussed around the Muslim world because we are in the month of Rabiul Awwal. We see that around Muslim worlds and around the world where Muslim communities live, we see that Sira programs are being discussed, talks are going on. So we decided to have a talk about the topic within the Sira, which is Al-Hijrah. So today we have our guest, our host and our guest from Islamic Oasis, Sheikh Muhammed Shirazi. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam tullah. How you doing, Sheikh? How's everything?
Alhamdulillah, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, so Sheikh, I want to start the discussion with a foundational question that why knowing and understanding Sirah of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is important. And we see that in the sources of Sharia, there's Quran, Sunnah, Ijma Sahaba, and Qiyas. But we don't see Sirah in that. And then why knowing and understanding Sirah is.
All right. First of all, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So, brother, Alhamdulillah, first the question is actually much even important than what you're asking. Number one, I think it's very important that we understand how ideologies work. Now, why do I say that? Because I think, we have to understand that every ideology, it needs a method to implement what it believes. It needs a method, or it needs, in case of ideology, it needs a state. In case of ideas in general, whatever it is, somebody starts a company, or if they have an idea, if they want to get that out there, they need a source, they need a vehicle, they need some type of a way to get that idea out. In case of ideologies, it needs a state. Communist, they had a state. Soviet Union failed. Today you have the capitalist. Most of the world today is capitalism. They have made sure that they put together the world according to what they believe. And now same thing with Islam. So first thing, any idea that there is no method to implement it, it becomes theory, it becomes philosophy. And this is very important to understand, that this is why today, unfortunately, if we look at Islam, Islam is in books. Islam, the scholars talk a lot about, usul and usul al-fiqh in general, rules, regulations, all of this, but none of it is implementable. None of it is. Whatever it is, that's what secularism allows. Unfortunately, Some may be happy with that, but without even realizing that's what is secularism allowing you to do. Now, so going back to that question of Hijrah here. Hijrah, in my view, was an idea now is going to be implemented. That's what happens in Medina, right? Idea was explained. Yani now we're talking about the Aqidah and what Islam is and what Islam is not, the roots of Islamic law, what will be the basis upon which people can act, what they cannot act, how will they do all of this, a whole way of life was now in form, a shape of a state with institutions that will now apply everything that was talked about in Mecca. Number two, when we talk about the Sira is the Prophet, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, also known as Maghazi.
Yeah.
Right? Most of the Medina is wars. I will come to that, I'm sure, but it's known as Maghazi, it's known as Sira. And of course, it is the source of Islamic law. We call that Sunnah. Right? We have books written on this, fiqh Sira, for instance, completely talking about the Sira and talking about the life of the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, the life of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina, the wars of the Prophet ﷺ, the institution building that the Prophet ﷺ did in Mecca, in Medina, the building of the Sahaba, the kind of methods that he used to build the Sahaba, the methodology used to build the state in Medina. All of this is Sira.
By listening to all of this, I mean, how can we even understand the Quran without knowing the life of Prophet ﷺ?
Of course.
To understand Quran, you have to know the Sira.
Yes.
There is a waqi of nuzul of
Asbab
wahi,
al-nuzul, yes.
asbab al-nuzul. If you don't know that, we cannot understand the ayah's context upon.
I mean, you're not going to be able to understand the Quran.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to understand, like we said, Asbab al-nuzul. You won't know why it was revealed. So then you don't understand if a scholar is looking at an issue and saying, okay, this ayah was revealed for this reason and this was the illah. We have a whole science of ilal, right? We have any Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Sahaba, Qiyas. Actually, if you really deeply think about it, all of it is Sira.
Yeah.
As we said, you can't understand the Quran without the Sira.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Quran itself is the Sira of the Prophet ﷺ. Meaning, that's why we hear that hadith from Aisha radiallahu anha, that if you want to understand the Quran, you understand the life of Rasulullah. Look at the Prophet ﷺ and you'll know the Quran. He is the walking, talking Quran. So that's why it's so it's so intermingled. There is no way that you can separate it. There's no way of separating it. Now, of course, the separating it is more just for technical reasons, to be able to say, okay, this is the Quran, so you understand what Quran is in general, meaning the surahs, the surah, the ayat, and then here's the Sira, how the Prophet ﷺ, when these ayat are revealed, how are they being implemented? When were they implemented? What were the reasons for their implementations, or even the reasons for why they were revealed? Right? So all of this is Sira. There's no separation of it. You can't separate it.
Yes.
It's impossible to separate it.
Yes.
Right? What's unfortunate is that how we study the Sira today. Okay. And I think that's one of the reasons why these questions even come up.
Yeah, because I got this question because once I went to a knowledgeable person, you can say, and I went to him and I asked that I want to study or go towards the knowledge of Deen. Where should I start? He said, read Quran. And when I started reading Quran, I couldn't connect the dots. Like when I'm directly reading the translation of Quran, I'm unable to understand what is the context of this. Why is this ayah being revealed?
Look, it's so that's one thing. Yeah. You won't be able to connect the dots.
Yes.
The other thing, Sheikh, is that the Sira is today, when we look at the studying of the Sira, like we said, we're talking about Miladun Nabi, or Mawlud al Nabi, however you want to Say, I went to, for instance, I was on Divan today. You look at all these flags all over Divan of different colors and different things, and people are celebrating, and there's all these, different massages that are doing different things in order to talk about the Sira of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But look, Sheikh, if we read the Sira of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, why is it then we still have, if we are able to celebrate the let's say the birth of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how is this possible that we are celebrating, this event, which is a magnificent event? It is an important event. I mean, after all, it's Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then Gaza is taking place, where the most beloved of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? You're talking about Ardul Isra al-Miraj. You're talking about, the place Allah called it Mubarak. الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه سميع البصير. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually took the Prophet ﷺ to this area to show him that don't worry about Quraysh. Whatever you think Quraysh is a very small part of what all the different things you're going to have to achieve. Okay, so you're worrying too much about this. But the Ummah today is looking at the Sira of the Prophet ﷺ as it's a storybook. We teach our kids, this happened. Oh, maybe a little bit about the spider story, and maybe the Sira and even that Sira is it's taught as if the Prophet ﷺ was not a commander in chief, as if the Prophet ﷺ was not a statesman, as if the Prophet ﷺ was not someone. I mean, look what I said in the beginning. Sira was called Maghazi. Yani, if you look at the 10 years that he spent in Medina, you're looking at a battle almost every 2 months, either a Ghazwa or Saraya. Even before the battle of Badr itself, 8 different events, battles take place. They call 4 of them are Sarayas and 4 of them are Ghazwa. The Prophet ﷺ himself was included in 4 of them. The other 4, he sent Hamza to one, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas to one, different Sahaba who went to different areas, and they were making sure that they make life hell for Quraysh and anything that Quraysh would do when it comes to their security, especially their financial security. So he was, and then look, he goes to Medina, and right away he changes the name of Yathrib to Medina. Madinatul Nabi, Madinat Munawwara. Right away, first thing he's doing, he's changing the name of the city. He's showing his authority that, look, things are going to go the way I want them to go here. And this is now the authority belongs to Islam, period. Then all of these other things, that led up to Badr. So battlefields are being planned. Even strategies are being planned. Institutions are being built. The Prophet ﷺ goes into Medina, and in Medina itself, he looks at what the Yahud are doing. For instance, they were in control of, for instance, weapons industry, you can say. They were selling weapons both to Aus and Khazraj. And they used to basically, in many ways, make money selling on both. And they kind of do today. And the Prophet ﷺ makes sure he sends some Sahaba to different parts of the world, to Sham, to China, to different places, to learn, to Persia, to learn different ways of weapons making. And then he tells them, you learn it, you come back and you teach it here. And then he also is buying from different places. In many ways, ending the monopoly of this business from the Yahud. And then, of course, he ends the whole financial hold that Yahud had in Medina. So the point I'm making is so many real details that we need to understand the Prophet ﷺ from almost every aspect of his life. We kind of do disservice to that. Only those who are really interested in learning that part, they'll go and dig in old classics, Ibn Ishaq and all of these other
Ibn
Ibn
Hisham.
Hisham and all, and then they'll go back and they'll dig into those things. If not, you go to the masajid, what are the ulama talking about? Rahmatul alameen, Rahmatul alameen. Of course, he's Rahmatul alameen. But rahmah without authority is not possible. Rahmah without standing up against oppression is not possible. Rahmah without institutions that actually implement and make sure justice is taking place is impossible. And so the practicality of how the Prophet ﷺ implemented Islam is what is Sira. The practicality of implementation of Islam is what we get from the Sira. And we need to make sure that Sira is thought that way.
Yeah. Coming back to the main topic, what led to Hijrah, Sheikh? What happened that it led to Hijrah? Like, for example, there is a perspective that Prophet ﷺ, Na'uz flee to Madinah. And he was there as a citizen. But we see in Sira that he was there, he was going as a ruler, not as a citizen. Right? So what led to Hijrah?
So this is we have to be very careful when we say that, Sheikh, that the Prophet ﷺ is fleeing. Yeah, that's a huge accusation. And those who are seeing, they need to fear Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Wallahu ya'asimuka min nas to him. That was revealed in Mecca. And that, they were worried that they were going to assassinate him, that there was, of course, planning going on. There was a lot of things that were going against the Prophet ﷺ. If the Prophet ﷺ wanted to leave, he could have left with other Sahaba who left to Abyssinia, even before going to Medina. He sends everyone, but he does not leave. Because you have to understand, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. The Prophet ﷺ does not do anything out of his desires. He does whatever he does, وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. It is the wahi that is guiding him, that is telling him. And he used to say that very straight. If they asked him a question and he said, why aren't we doing this? He said, I'm told not to do that yet. I need to know what Allah wants from me. Many, many times. Sahaba came even in Madinah, for instance, the Prophet Sahaba, one thing is that they were told, sabr. You're going to have patience until a victory comes, which came in Medina, where the Prophet ﷺ then did the offensive, which is Badr. I understand that there is bahas on that, or there is discussions on this and different opinions on this, whether Badr was offensive or whether it was defensive. But anybody who studies it in detail will know that this was an actually offensive war. But the Prophet ﷺ in Medina or in Mecca, Allah Azza wa Jal told him, we are the ones that are going to protect him. So, because Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, is a hadith from Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas that they were worried. He used to come around at night and constantly go around the house of the Prophet ﷺ to make sure that there's nobody there. And one time the Prophet ﷺ came out and said to Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas that go home. Allah has promised me safety. I'm under the safety of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the point though is that the Prophet ﷺ, if he was issue of fleeing, a'udhu billah, then he could have just left. As I said, opportunities were there, but that's not what he does. He waits for the order of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to move to Medina. And look, Sheikh, the other thing that we need to understand: the Prophet ﷺ never did anything without an objective. Okay. Yes. The Prophet ﷺ never. This is another miracle by itself. He was very clear about what he wanted to achieve from day one. Yeah. A person of very clear agenda, what he needed to achieve. It's very clear for the Prophet ﷺ. So a person with that type of qualities and that type of character does not do things haphazardly.
Yes. If you see in the Sira, there is a whole chapter before the Hijrah called Talab al-Nusra. Yeah. When Prophet ﷺ, the chapter starts with the very famous waqia of Taif. Yes. Right? Prophet ﷺ went to Taif and asked for Nusra to the leaders of Taif. And then the whole 3-4 years before Hijrah, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is doing Talabun Nusra. And
Talab al-Nusra here meaning seeking victory. When
seeking
you're
victory.
Seeking support. Seeking support here means, see, this is a very important idea we must understand, Sheikh. Is that when we say seeking Nusra, that is also very clear and with very clear objective. The objective was looking for a people or tribe. In that time, there were tribes that were going to come accept Islam, number one, and then they were going to protect the Prophet ﷺ and the Deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Protect meaning that they were going to give authority to the Prophet ﷺ and the Deen of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. That's what it meant by Talab al-Nusra. He is going, for instance, from the beginning of the da'wah, right? For instance, when you said Taif, there used to be bazaars that used to happen in close to Taif. There was another one that was Taif, and there was one more I'm forgetting. They said about 20 miles. They said 20 kilometers from Mecca, and this would happen during the time of Hajj, right? They had few things that they would do during the time of Hajj and things like this. And the Prophet ﷺ was going and talking to the people in the bazaars that used to come along at that time. And this is where we find that famous story of Abu Jahl coming behind the Prophet ﷺ and saying, don't listen to him, don't listen to him, don't listen to him. And the Prophet ﷺ did not care what Abu Jahl had to say. He would continue on preaching and talking to the people, meaning literally in the bazaars and in the pathways, he was speaking to the people. And that's what the other is, literally speaking to tribes. He was going there to visit those who were coming to visit Mecca, right?
Across the Arabian Peninsula.
Across the Arabian Peninsula. Yani, as I said, close to Taif, close to Mecca. That's where they met even Aus and Khazraj. Right? Because of this type of work that the Prophet ﷺ is doing. Right? So he is looking for people of power, people who have authority in their lands, in this case, certain tribes, who are willing to come and support the Prophet ﷺ and give victory to the Deen of Allah. That's what it means in Tansurullah yansurukum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. And later on, it happened to be Aus and Khazraj of Madinah. So it was very clear for the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba that Islam is not about just a few things, like what we have done today, Salah, Siyam, Zakah. And to be honest, even the institution of Zakah is not properly implemented. Because Zakah needs an institution behind it. All this money the Muslims give, we have no idea in reality where this money goes, right?
Yes.
How does it get distributed? Who distributes it? What are their, how do we actually know that it's properly going to all? So there is no actual way of looking and taking anybody accountable. So simple thing as zakah, we don't have an institution that actually can implement it. So when we talk about hijrah, one thing that I need Muslims, whoever's listening to this thing, remember, you can talk about Islam is in the most beautiful way as possible. And Islam is beautiful. But the only way to show its beauty is when it's actually implemented. Because implementation is when the fruits are shown, right? Products are shown. What your ideas that you're saying will bring victory or remove oppression or bring mercy to mankind, how can people actually taste it without its implementation? If not, you'll see theory. So Prophet ﷺ knows that. Sahaba know that. And hence the seeking of those people. And then we have, Aqaba 1 that takes place. And of course, Mus'ab ibn Umair's role in that. And then he sends Mus'ab ibn Umair because when the people of Aus and Khazraj used to hear about somebody coming, a prophet that will be coming to this area, the way it's there in Hijrah, in the Sira, Sheikh, is that Aus and Khazraj were actually coming to Mecca to meet with Abu Jahl. Okay, they were coming to meet with Abu Jahl because they were also tired of the fighting that was taking place in Medina. So much fighting taking place. Most of the leadership were killed, and it was not happening. Right? It's the funny thing also is that I was listening to Henry Kissinger the other day, and he said the situation of the Muslims. He's talking about us, although he was giving a talk about China.
Okay.
And so someone asked him about questions regarding Russia. Then he was talking about the Middle East and the Muslim land. He's calling the Muslim world. That's what he calls it. There's no Middle East or Muslim world.
Muslim world.
He said they are stuck in what Europe was stuck in 30 years war before Westphalian Treaty was signed. The 30 years of war in Europe, that finally they had to figure out what to do so that Europe can somehow unite on something. And then they come out of that darkness into, dark ages, into the enlightenment and all that. So he said, that's where the Muslims are stuck, is what he's saying. Now, I understand what he's saying, where he's saying they're stuck in their religious wars.
They don't have any ideology to stand on.
That's what he's saying. But when I'm listening to it, and I'm looking at it as saying, we are stuck. Our dilemma is that we are stuck with all of the mess that has been created by the West, right? Capitalism, communism, liberalism, whatever isms, all these isms that we have today. Our leaders, we have no leadership, right? There is no leadership. To the point, I'll give you another example. Today, while we're talking about this, early this morning, there was the Foreign Affairs Committee had a meeting regarding Lebanon, what's happening in Lebanon. And because, this could be on a situation of war, we don't know the game, but obviously. So anyway, somebody had asked him, they bought somebody from, I think it's the Jewish intelligence or the Israeli intelligence. So they were asking him, and asking some people from the foreign national security, department and all that. There was one very interesting statement made, and that was the Gulf countries themselves don't trust, or the Arabs or the Gulf countries, they don't even trust each other. And most of the security is given to them by us, meaning Israel and the United States. Whenever they whenever they actually think of doing something real, they always come to us first. So it's not like Mohammed bin Salman is asking Sisi, or Sisi is asking, somebody from Assad or something from Syria. No, that trust does not exist. There is nothing. They don't stand on Islam. They don't stand. Nothing. These are just literally cartoonish states that are basically working with Israel, because Israel is a forward base of the United States, where it's basically directing these states.
Yes.
So now you go back to what's happening in Aus with Aus and Khazraj. Yahud are there also. They were the ones who were controlling the weapons industries, literally giving them the weapons, fighting on both sides, making money on both sides. Then you have situation where they are tired of fighting, but there is no, what do we stand on? What do we actually unite on? So they thought maybe at least Quraysh, because everybody listens to Quraysh, at least maybe Quraysh might give them something to stand on and unite us.
So there was a vacuum then?
There's a vacuum.
In Aus and Khazraj, and there is a vacuum now in the Muslim world.
Yes.
Okay.
Just like there was vacuum in Europe.
Yeah.
Right. Then they came to they basically came to the Prophet ﷺ asking for, where is Abu Jahl? And so when he asked him, when sometimes when things have to happen, they happen this way. So the Prophet ﷺ told them, no, I have something better to offer. And then he gives them da'wah, calls them to Islam, gives them the details about the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And they decide, they say, we hope that this is going to unite us. Then the Prophet ﷺ decides that he's going to send Musab ibn Umair to Medina. They're going to go, and he's going to go and teach them there. He stays there 2 years, and then which leads to Aqaba, the second Aqaba. So the point I'm saying, Sheikh, is that if you're not able to read the Sira this way, um, then you will miss the reality of the Sira. And to be honest, you will even miss the reality to understand how the Sira is actually one of the sources of law. Because you're not going to be able to extract law if you don't understand Sira this way. You're not going to extract any laws from stories.
Yes. And we see that basically, generally, when history is read, people read it in a mythological way, like everything was great. They read it as a...
Or it's not impossible for us.
Or
it's not possible. It's like you're reading Greek mythology.
Yeah, it's like a utopia kind of thing, that it was all, very great. But basically, if you see the science of history, it should be read as the way it was. Only then you can understand, take lessons from the history. If you only read the only good what happened, or with that perspective, if we approach towards the historical sciences, we cannot
see. It's okay. So it's not just the historical sciences.
Yeah,
fine. I can read Sira as history. Somebody wants to read Sira. Okay, I want to read it from a historical perspective. Fine. But this is the beauty of the Sira. The Sira has to be read from the historical perspective, so you know what happened. Now, I'll give you an example of that. The difference between reading Sira from history and how history in Islamic law, the role it actually plays, meaning the perspective of law. Okay, we got to connect that, but I think people understand. Before Badr, or the Battle of Badr, you know the famous story of the two Sahaba, the two young ones, they were 12, 13-year-old. They come to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf is in the middle of the battlefield. They come to Abdurrahman ibn Auf and they say, Ya Ammu, like uncle, who is Abu Jahl? So he said, oh, why do you want to know who Abu Jahl is? Where is Abu Jahl? They said, where is Abu Jahl? He said, oh, why do you want to know where he is? I mean, we're talking about 12 years old, 13-year-olds. Literally two brothers. He said, oh, we heard that Abu Jahl used to do this to the Prophet ﷺ. So we want to avenge that in this battle. Which means, like, how did they know? I mean, because they hadn't seen Abu Jahl. Right? So they're asking Abdurrahman ibn Auf because he was there in Mecca.
Yes.
So the Sahaba made sure that they teach the Sirah of Meccan period in Medina to the Sahaba, to the young ones. And so that they know their responsibilities, what they need to do. And so in Badr, they're coming and they're asking, saying, where is so-and-so? Where is so-and-so? Where is so-and-so? And subhanAllah, we know that these two were the Sahaba who actually killed Abu Jahl. Later in that same battle. And so this is what I'm saying. This is why they understood this history. The Sahaba made sure that they thought that history, but it wasn't history for the sake of, so you can just keep talking about history, theory. No, it was
history connecting with history, reality.
But it's also you should know, because now there are laws about what to do about that time. The laws that have been revealed now about what needs to be done against the enemies of Allah or the friends of Allah, or when it comes to the implementations of the deen of Allah, when it comes to you and me doing business. Everything. Because Islam is an ideology. It's an ideology. That's the thing. So we have to be very careful. Some people, calling it theology, calling it reading Sira just as history. No, we have to be very careful. Don't make Islam
a religion.
A religion is one thing. It's not Hinduism, Sheikh. Right? You're not reading Ramayana.
Hinduism is a religion.
Right. No, I'm making it even more clear. Yeah. You're not reading Ramayana. You're not reading Mahabharata. Right? These were made up stories for the sake of a made up process.
Okay.
This is revelation. The Prophet ﷺ's life in Mecca is revelation. And so is the life of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. It's revelation. And Allah does not reveal things for the sake of stories. This is very serious. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, right? Because keep something in mind, that revelation had to be followed, even if it cost you your life. So that type of seriousness has to be there when Sira is being taught, or when we are studying the lives of the Sahaba, when we are studying the life of the Anbiya, and finally the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sheikh, there is another perspective of Sira that the struggle was only in Makkah. Like there was struggle in Makkah. I know that the Al Yasir were shaheed in Makkah. Hazrat Bilal is being tortured, and Hazrat Khabbab is being tortured, and the whole Shayba Bani Hashim, the boycott of the family of Bani Hashim, all of those struggles was there in Makkah. But there is a perspective that when Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, there were no challenges like that. So what were the challenges of Medina, like munafiqeen, and what were the challenges of Medina basically?
Look, Sheikh, first of all, each stage had its own challenges. That's one of the reasons why some of the ulama divide the Sira even in 2 or 3. Right? They'll divide it in 3 and say, okay, this is the first stage, and this is what the struggles were and what happened. The da'wah stage, right? Now the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is coming and challenging, and all of this, challenging the ways of life of the people, challenging the society itself. Then there's a part where he is seeking nusra, sending people to, like we talked about, sending him to tribes, sending him to different areas of regions, asking them to support this deen so that it can be implemented. Look, the whole thing needs to be implemented. Then comes Medina. Medina happens through a struggle. Medina is state building.
Okay.
Medina is now building a state, securing the state, and expanding the state. Medina became now the pivot, if you want to call it. It became the main. Now from here, everything is going to happen. It's the center stage. It's so Medina, the Prophet ﷺ is building a state that is going to not just building an infrastructure that is going to rule the world. I mean, you can imagine the challenges to that, what that means, right? Now you're talking about, in Mecca, you're just challenging Quraysh. You're challenging maybe the tribes that are around. In Medina, you're challenging the world.
Subhanallah.
Now imagine the challenges.
Yeah.
You're talking about exponential growth here. You're saying, now begins هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله
ولو
كره المشركون or mushrikin. And imagine now the whole world is now being challenged. Everyone, the Persians are being sent, letters are being sent to the Persians, letters are being sent to the Romans, the tribes in south of Iraq are being contacted. The Prophet ﷺ right away, he that's what I said. I mean, the moment he gets there, imagine 8 battles before Badr. And what he was doing is that he would go and he would attack the caravans, anything that would help Mecca financially. He was basically saying to Mecca, you're done. Look, you're done.
He was taking out the leadership from Quraysh, transferring leadership from Quraysh to Al-Islam.
To Islam, and making sure that at one point, all of Jaziratul Arab comes under Islam. That's the plan right now. Jaziratul Arab, and then from Jaziratul Arab to rest of the world, right? So the plan is already there. And you can see that from so many hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, right? From what happens in Khandaq, what happens in now. The when the Prophet ﷺ starts going to areas that were out of Medina, the tribes out of Medina, he asks the Muhajirin. So that's why he sends, like, say, Hamza radiallahu and some of the others. They go down to, they look at all the tribes that exist in these areas, and they start making treaties with all these tribes. That you're not going to fight against Medina. You're going to, if you're attacked, and we will also help you. It's attack on us. And that when we are attacked, then you will be fighting with us. He's making all these deals across the whole of that area, basically saying that no one can pass through this without Muhammad ﷺ saying yes or no. We are now the world order. We are setting up an infrastructure for the coming world order, and it's going to begin and happen out of Medina, Jaziratul Arab, and the rest of the world. We are looking at the world as because the world belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will do everything possible that the world order is under the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
We'll make sure that the world runs according to the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So when you talk about challenges, it's where do you want to begin? But there's
like the challenges of munafiqeen.
Oh, of course. Of course. I'm saying that as saying that when you think about, if you were thinking that the problems were there in Medina, Makkah,
yeah.
I mean, now you can think of, you're talking about now fighting the Romans and the Persians and the rest of the Arabian Peninsula. It's no longer just Quraysh.
Yeah.
Right? And beyond. So now you have to figure out, okay, how are you going to make this Medina, which is a tiny little state, into a state that can handle Persians and Romans at the time, Persians and the Romans at the time in this area. So challenges were now strategic. So the Prophet ﷺ had to build people who understand what that means. The Prophet ﷺ had to teach in that way. Institutions had to be right away set up so that Muslims understand their goal, their objective of what needs to be done. The Prophet ﷺ will not be there forever. So he had to make sure that he leaves a proper infrastructure so that the Sahaba know what needs to be done, because your responsibility after me is to take this deen to the whole world. The whole world. So that's the whole thing now, is to set up that infrastructure so that there's no excuse for the Muslims. Right? So when you look at when Badr happens, the interesting thing about Badr, Sheikh, that the Prophet ﷺ made sure in Badr, every single person that had to do with leadership in Mecca was killed.
Yeah.
You look at, even though he took prisoners. But the 70 that were killed, 95% of them were from the leadership of Mecca. And he,
Ahlul Nadwa.
yes, everybody that used to sit in the Nadwa is gone. Abu Jahl is gone. Abu Lahab didn't even show up, for whatever reasons. They say this guy was a coward. Some say he did send
his sons.
No, he actually, I'm not sure if he sent his sons. I'm not sure, but he did send somebody else. He owed him 4,000 dinar. He told them, I'll forgive it. You go and fight on my behalf. So
but the 95% of the...
Yeah, they all showed up. And some of them, it's very interesting, because if you look at what was happening at Badr, some of the people who were there in Badr, leadership people of Mecca, had realized this is a bad idea. Because, one of them, I forgot his name, subhanAllah, let's put it this way, there were discussions going on while they are in Badr. That is this really worth fighting now? Because you had a situation where somebody came and said, look, you are saying Okay, the idea was our our caravan is not safe. Now it's safe. It's in Mecca.
Mhm.
Abu Sufyan is saying it's already here. You don't have to do this. Let's say. The other issue was that somebody actually came and said, okay, fine, we understand one of the Sarayas before Badr, one of their men of Quraysh was killed. One of the Quraysh, subhanAllah, I'm forgetting his name, but he came and said, look, how much I will give the diya to you and let's just get out of here. Abu Jahl keeps saying, no, that's not what's going to happen. There were some who didn't even want to come to Badr. This includes Umayyah, I think it was. Who didn't want to even show up. Him and his son did not want to show up. There's one story that Abu Jahl, he bought this ring with, what do you call this thing that smells good? Bakhur type of thing. And he said, why don't you wear this on your finger and put it like the woman put? And he was saying that, look, is this really even worth fighting? Because Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was dragging them in. Look, he's looking at Jaziratul Arab, beyond Mecca. But Mecca needs to be conquered. And these are the main people in the way.
Because Mecca is the status
Because
quo.
once you have leader, look, no one allows leadership people in a battlefield, at least in war. You don't allow leadership type people to go back alive. Because you know that these guys are going to come back and they're going to make trouble again and they will bring up a whole new army again. That happens in every war. That's one of the reasons why the thinkers are killed right away. In every war. Right? So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also knows that and understands that. So 70 of them he gets rid of, to the point that some of them were taken in as prisoners. He told them, no, you bring them out and you get rid of them. How many times he ordered Ali radiallahu anhu to take care of this and to take care of this. So what I'm saying, Sheikh, is that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is teaching leadership to the Sahaba. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is in the middle of battlefields. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is teaching Sahaba how battles are fought. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is teaching the women of Medina patience. If you're going to fight this many battles, you're going to have a lot of patience. Right? So sabr, sacrifice, in ways you cannot even imagine. And knowing that because of the nature of Medina, that it is going to challenge to the rest of the world, you will constantly be challenged also. And you have to be ready for that challenge. Within Medina, you have all these things going on where you have, sure, munafiqeen and all of that. But more than the munafiqeen, it was what you building a nation that can handle the world. That's a lot of work.
And it continued till 1924.
Yes. And it's still continuing, but now we have realized what we need to do.
As a state.
Yes. And now, inshallah, these conversations also, like this type of conversations are rare.
They are.
In a sense that really understanding and learning from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, matters of politics, matters of leadership, matters of strategy, matters of thinking, matters of state building, matters of running an economy, setting up contracts.
There is another question regarding Hijrah, Sheikh, that recent from, like if you see from past 50 years, there is a fikr, there is a thinking going amongst the Muslims in the Muslim world that we have, like there are a lot of Muslims from the Muslim world move to West and the Western countries in hope of having good for economic reasons or for security reasons. They move to West and they see that they're to feel safe, right? They are being threatened in the Muslim world or the economic situation is not good. They move to Western world. And we see that they realize after moving here that their kids are not, they are worried about their belief, their iman, because the things which are being taught in the schools are homosexuality or atheism, things like that. Now they are stuck in a situation that what we have to do. We moved from Muslim world. They say, generally it's called a Hijrah. Move from Muslim world to the West to seek security or for economic prosperity. And then when we come here, there is a mess over here. What should the Muslims do? What
Fix the
work?
mess. Fix the mess.
Hmm.
Look, Sheikh, that's what I'm saying, right? Let's go back to Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ is making Hijrah. He knows that Medina needs to be established because it's a mess. The whole Muslim world, the whole world is a mess. Mecca is a mess. Medina was a mess. Rome was a mess. Persia was a mess. There is no justice anywhere.
Mm.
There is no justice anywhere. There's no mercy anywhere. People were dying for mercy, man. I mean, literally just mercy. Children are being killed just because somebody's a female. Baby, imagine, man, you're talking about merciless people. People had, just like what we see in the world today. We're talking about 200,000 people or so killed in Gaza, right? Bombs blasting in the middle of hospitals, schools, like what we're seeing in Lebanon, right? And so the world is trying to figure out what do we do, right? Look, akhi, the Muslims have to have something really, they have to make sure that there are certain things very clear in their mind. We will never find justice without Islam. Actually, the world will not find justice without Islam. Examples are more than clear to us. We can move to different places, sure. We're moving here, we're moving there. It's like wars, right? Because of this war, we have to move to that land. Then the war begins in that land, you move to that land. Yani how many places, just imagine, Palestinians moved so far, right? From here to here, from here to here to Lebanon to, they're almost everywhere in the world. You can see the Palestinians. Okay, so how many places are you going to move? Number one. Number two, the only thing that's going to keep you as you are, meaning your identity, is that no matter where you are, you're going to have to be involved in the dawah. If not, you're finished. Right? The only way to safeguard your identity, your ideas, your iman, your aqidah, is that you keep yourself working for the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, no matter where you are. And as far as being safe, you're not safe anywhere. Remember, I always give this example that, look, you're in the ocean, you're going to get wet. Right? Don't think that, depends on the levels of how wet you want to get. Some people are knee deep, some people are drowning, some people are, just their feet maybe, but everybody's wet. Why? Because kufr is everywhere. You're not going to be able to escape it. So you're going to have to find the shore. You're going to have to find a way out of this ocean, right? So, and that ocean today is Jahiliyyah. No schools anywhere in the world are safe when it comes to homosexuality. The American, when you look at the American culture or the Western culture of homosexuality or interest or nakedness or, where this whole culture in some way, even, Brzezinski, like, for instance, he talks about this in his book, Out of Control, that you're talking about because of people living in such secular societies become so irreligious without morality that you're going to face a problem where you're going to have youth without any objectives. And he's actually starting from the West because he's saying even luxuries and even the secular identities is making people not, they don't know where they stand in life.
It's an empty society.
Emptiness, as Sayyid Qutb said, when he looked at New York, like they said, the first thing he looked at New York and he said, this is a city without a ruh. Right? Which is true. You're dealing with the society, number one, adultery, promiscuity, no one is safe from somebody else's looks. People are just kind of living lives. The whole objective is make money, and then they make money and then they don't even know, okay, what am I going to do with this money? Emptiness. And then a person without any thoughts, clear concepts, then the person commits suicide, and he has the wealth of the world. They're at the end. And many of these things. So, we can go into that in a later time. But what Hijrah is, akhi, is that Hijrah is a move from objectiveless lives to clear objectives. Right? He builds a state where anyone that comes to live here, Rasulullah, anybody that comes to live in Medina realizes the objective of life, purpose of life, reality of life, responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mercy, fight against oppression. Every single person that comes to Mecca and comes to Medina realizes these things. And even sometimes when they try to go back and even advise Mecca that you can't fight these people. And one of the main reasons was that the Sahaba were very clear about their objectives. Look, I'll give you an example with that because at the time, I understand. 2 different times, they sent 2 different kind of spies to go and see what's happening right before Badr. So when they met at Badr, the Quraysh said, just go and look amongst them. How many are there? What are they going to do? So one comes in, he says, he stays a little bit, and then he goes back to the Quraysh and says, how many are there? He said, about 315, 3 like this. He said, okay, 300 something, but it's not more than that. He said, so what are they thinking? How are they? He goes, I looked at all their faces and they are serious. They're not going to let you go. 315. Those guys are 3,000 something, whatever it is. And he goes, I looked at their faces. I'm looking at them. I saw them. They're not going to let you go. Uh-huh. So a type of discussion starts within Quraysh. Is this worth it? And now they're shaken. 300 with that type of objective, clear objective purpose, what needs to be done. And nothing is happening in their head.
And they don't know why they are. And
clear.
The against party doesn't know why they're fighting.
Why like this? That's what I'm saying. There's to the point, one of them came to Banu Makhzum, and this actually happened. They said, man, look, Muhammad Sallallahu does not lie, right? He said, yeah, I know he doesn't lie. He said, why are you fighting him? He goes, look, man, we're Makhzum, Bani Makhzum. These guys, they already have the keys of Mecca. They're already serving the pilgrims. They're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. Man, now even the Nabuwah to them, what do we have left? What can we have? So the guy who's listening to all of this, he got up and he left. He said, we're not going to join you in Badr. Says, why? He said, looks like this is for your status and your interest. Even the people who are fighting everywhere, it's not even about their interest. It's about the interest of the elite of Mecca. And this is the issue today. Most people are living their lives, soldiers fighting, police protecting. They have no idea why they do all of this. Money, fine. There's something that I need to live, so I need some money. Somebody does this, somebody does that. But in reality, it's protection for the elite. They send another second time. They send somebody else second time. Go. He comes back, gives them the same answer. He says, look, So what I'm saying, Sheikh, is that's the thing. And that's one of the reasons why the Muslims were so successful. Right? Success doesn't come from all the, machinery or all the things, technology that you have. All of that is needed. I understand that. But clear objectives, purpose of life. Why do you do what you do has to be so clear that you cannot have any, doubts. And that's what made the Islamic nation what it is. The moment we fell off of that, we got out of that, we went on a different track, everything is clear for us today. So when you talk about moving here, moving there, doesn't matter where you move. Have your objectives clear. No matter where you go, Allah is watching. You can't hide. No matter where you go, you're going to die. No matter where you go, you're going to be buried one day. So your responsibility has to be constantly, whatever you do, you need to look at what does Allah want. That is the only way to success.
There is a hadith of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Mafhum of hadith is that a Sahabi asks, what is Hijrah? Prophet ﷺ says that leaving whatever goes against the will of Allah and coming towards the will of Allah is hijrah.
From shar to khair.
Yeah, from shar to khair.
Yes.
With that, we'll end, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. Allah mubarak.
لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر لا 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 لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر صبح بدا نور ظهر نجم وشمس وقمر ألقى على الدنيا الدرر هذا عمر هذا عمر كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر هذا عمر هذا عمر لا لن تدوم الجراح بل سيأتي الصباح نحن أهل الكفاح نحن فينا عمر لا لا